Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Another quick video here for you. So about a week ago, maybe, I put out a video talking about why I use real-life transactions, and there was a good question on there from somebody who was asking about what I do for limiting player usage. That is a very good question, actually. And really, what I do is I play the game and I try to win with whatever team I'm playing with. That's sort of my guiding philosophy to an extent, right? I try my hardest not to take advantage of guys who had like no at bats and who can be easily misused. Although if you've been paying attention, especially to Diamond Mine baseball, you know that I've done that on occasion, and sometimes it sort of slips my mind. Diamond Mine is a little bit easier of a game because you can easily see the players' statistics, both real life and in game. They're easily put side by side. It's a little bit small, but you can manage. You can get around on that a little bit. Skeetersoft is different. Skeetersoft is hard, and I think Skeetersoft is sort of a good representation of the problems that we have when we try to do this using card and dice as well. So let's go ahead over here. We'll look at the screen view once again. So my head's a little bit bigger. This is the standings. This is probably not super important to you other than knowing that the Athletics are now 12-8, and this is that the reason why we keep having American League games is because the American League is just so tight. National League, not so much. American League is very, very tight and is giving us a lot of very interesting baseball. So what we're looking at here basically is, how do you make decisions about things like who to start and stuff like that. Let's say that we want to start a game. This is where you run into problems, right? So somebody was telling me, oh, well, when you're in a game, it's really easy. You can right-click on the guy, and it will tell you, what his statistics are and stuff like that. Yeah, it is not easy here. Look, this is what happens when I right-click on anybody. Nothing, right? I want to go back, want to do something else. You can't, right? That's the problem. It's kind of a problematic thing, and so I can click on a guy like, say, Jimmy Barrett and see that this is like a little bit of what his card tells me, but it doesn't even tell me as far as this is concerned, like how many games the guy started, how many games the guy was in. I look over here at Eddie Collins or Ralph Glaze or someone like that. I can tell who's a starting pitcher, who's a reliever, kind of, but I can't tell like the number of starts the guy's had, number of innings he's pitched, number of innings that he pitched in real life or anything like that. It's a mess, right? It's nice to have information when you're playing a game instead of having no information. This game is an example of having no information. It's literally set up like you have the cards in front of you, except when you're choosing the lineup, you don't even have the card in front of you, right? If you want to look at the guy's card here, you have to do this thing where we're going to go look at Tris Speaker, right, or whatever, and see, oh, Tris Speaker only played in 31 games, but he played 31 defensive games. Okay, we'll have to keep that in mind when we're doing whatever. This is what your cards look like. That's the card side of things, I guess. Pictures are nice. They'll tell you how many starts they had. You can tell at a glance, like, okay, this guy was a starter. This guy was a starter who pitched in some relief, right? The asterisk will tell you that, but this will tell you, like, oh, he was a regular starter, or this guy was like a guy who came in once or like 3 times or whatever. They got rid of him for whatever reason it was, right? That's kind of nice, but when you're trying to set a lineup and try to figure this out in a replay, you need more information than that. My apologies if this is kind of a gripe session about this game, but as I said, this is also the sort of thing you run into if you do this by hand. One reason why it's important to do statistics by hand if you're playing a card and dice replay with like no computer is because this will help you know if you're overusing guys or not. You can much more easily manage usage if you keep track of usage. If you don't keep track of usage, you're going to overuse a guy. Absolutely. There's no question about it. And the reason why is because, you keep track of the things you care about. If you care about something, you'll keep track of it. And if you clearly don't care about something, you just will not keep track of it, right? So it is. So that's kind of what's going on. That's one of the problems here. How do I do this? How do I set this up? Well, it's not easy, right? So I can go over here to the stats. I love going to the standings. That's more fun. Go over here to the stats, and you can look at the stats for guys in the team, right? We can organize this by like who's played the most games, who has the most plate appearances. That'll tell you who's been hitting leadoff, who's played the most games. That'll give you a good idea of what our normal lineup is. Usually when I'm trying to arrange the lineup, I don't pay too much attention to like how good or how bad they were in real life. Instead, I will look over here, what's the OPS, what's the on-base percentage and slugging percentage. You cannot You cannot have the game here generate OPS ratings, but what you can do is you can click on all stats to Excel, and then this thing like sits around and waits like a million years to figure out what it's doing. And now it's opened up. Let's see what's going on. See, it's a good thing that I used the screen view, right? So my virtual machine is having a hard time trying to parse out the awesomeness of this Excel template, apparently, or this Excel spreadsheet. And it might take a minute or two for us to get this loaded up. Meanwhile, we can look over here at the pitching as well, part of the team. And the pitching will tell you basic information about who has pitched what and how much they've pitched. You know, what I did basically is I know who the 4 starters are for each of these teams. I did that before the start of the season. And for pitching, I think I looked at the batting against average when I last reset everything and said, okay, you know, Cy Young, you're kind of like turning out to be the ace of the Red Sox staff, so we will have you up there. Yeah, boy, I don't know why Excel doesn't like me today. Okay, so we will see if we can reopen that because that didn't work, did it? That's a little bit odd. I don't know what's going on here on my computer. All right, well, I'll take a look at that offline, all right? What I was going to show you is that with batting, you could put this all in an Excel spreadsheet, and then you could just add together on-base percentage and slugging percentage and use that to have your lineups. Now is the part where it becomes tricky, right? And so, you know, I don't have any ad block here on this side of things, right? All sorts of problems when we're on the Windows side. So whatever, we'll look up the 1908 Red Sox. If I were going to look and try to figure out, like, if the guy's playing realistically or not, this is what I would have to do, right? So I have this over here behind my head. Pull this over to the side so it's kind of off the screen almost. And then you're like, all right, so how are we going to do this? How are we going to, you know, make this comparison, right? You can see some guys. You can see, where's Fred Burchell over here? I did put in 1908, didn't I? Yes, I did. And where did he go? I'm not quite sure where he went. Anyway, well, we're not going to be able to see Fred Burchell because I can't find him. Oh, here he is. Yes, Fred Burchell is a pitcher. That's the reason why. That's the reason why I couldn't find him. No, we want to look at somebody who's not a pitcher. Let's see, Gavy Kravitz, right? So here's Gavy in real life. He was, Baseball Reference doesn't have him marked as a starter. I'm not sure if there's another guy who comes in later. I haven't got all the transactions memorized, of course, you know. But you can go over here and take a look. Okay, so he had, 340 plate appearances in real life. He has 84 now. He's leading the team, almost leading the team right behind Doc Gessler, right? And you can take a quick look and see, okay, is the usage about right? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. It's kind of a headache, and it's not a very easy thing to do. It becomes difficult when you're trying to piece together, exactly what, each player should or should not be doing. And, the biggest problem that you have in doing this by hand, no matter what game you play, is that you'll have guys who play multiple positions, and it turns into that sort of jigsaw puzzle type thing where you have a whole bunch of pieces. It can fit together one way, it can fit together the other way, and in the end you look at it and you're like, I don't know how to fit this together, and you kind of make something up as you go. So that's kind of the way you do it here with Skeetersoft. It's nicer if you can just double click, or if you can see when you choose the lineup what usage was like in real life, because doing it this way is a huge use of time for 16 teams, and in the end, at least in my experience, you're not going to make a huge change, right? Maybe we'll put in Jack Thoney a little bit more. That might be a good idea. I think I've been starting Kravitz because he was hitting well for a while, but Thoney might be the answer. So we might have to go back and make a couple of changes, right? So there you go. That's kind of the mechanics of what you do. The big question, though, is not the mechanics, but rather is what about the philosophy behind this? And that's where it becomes really interesting. So the philosophy behind this in general for me is that I want as much as possible in every game to have to face the decisions and face the things that guys in real life had to face, the manager in real life had to face for that team, right? That's the ideal. The ideal thing is to set it up so that I'm doing the replay, but I have the same constraints that the guy had in real life, right? So-and-so is injured. Joe DiMaggio is not playing right now, and so on and so forth, right? It works sort of with real-life transactions, but not fully. This is where fatigue systems come into play. Diamond Mind has a fatigue system, especially for catchers, but not a great fatigue system. It will tell you, though, when you're overusing a guy, it has a little thing that will tell you you've used 200% of what his real-life usage was. For most guys who don't play that much, I don't really care. It's okay. Oh, he got 10 plate appearances instead of 5 or something. Who cares, right? But in some cases, that might really be a big deal, and I might tell you kind of what the problem is with the replay. I have a story about that you'll read eventually on the blog when I finally get back around to writing things about this line of thinking, right? one thing I'll tell you that's very good, especially about OOTP, is that it has a built-in fatigue system that somewhat realistically will manage this. Not 100% realistic. You'll notice stuff if you play with OOTP, like it'll tell you to have Lou Gehrig, come out of the game, and that he can't start the next game or whatever because he's too tired. I've seen that happen before. So it's not 100% realistic, but, when all is said and done, it's good enough, right? And it is a system. I would love to see more fatigue systems like this built into games. Again, I have to admit, I don't know. I haven't owned Replay Baseball yet, the board game. I did own the basketball game for a while, and I had to get rid of it. I never actually played it, didn't have time. My guess is that Replay probably has some kind of fatigue system. Remember, that's the game that will give you all of this stuff to help your replay along, in box, which is nice. It would be nice if other companies would do that. Anyway, if you know of any other game companies, though, that address this, especially for board games, let me know. It's board games that I'm especially interested in to know what kind of solutions guys come up with and what kind of things you can make so that it's a little bit easier in your replayer, right? Because especially if you're rolling dice, you don't want to have the encyclopedia in front of you, and you definitely don't want to have the computer screen in front of you. You just want to be able to sit down, roll your dice, figure out who needs to play, and figure that out without having to spend, 20, 30 hours ahead of time getting everything set up, and also without having to go like I do every week in these replays and being like, okay, let's change the lineup around and fix this up and fix that up and figure out what we do with the trades and stuff. Anyway, it's a mess. Somebody really should come out with some kind of guide to certain teams or to certain seasons for replayers to make it easier, because otherwise we all keep reinventing the wheel. There you go. I've rambled on long enough for you, and I'll talk with you again tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed this. Talk to you then. Bye.